9 people were killed after Russian missile strike a restaurant in the eastern Ukrainian city of Kramatorsk. Authorities said that 42 people were injured due to the attack. Emergency workers were seen looking for survivors as residents stood outside embracing and surveying the damage from the missile. The building was reduced to a twisted web of metal beams due to the strike. Another missile hit a village on the fringes of the city, injuring 5 people. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko has asked the Russian mercenary group Wagner to share their war experience with Belarus if they wish to move to the country. Lukashenko had brokered a deal last week that ended a mutiny by the Wagner fighters. The group was allowed to either join the Russian armed forces or move with their leader Yevgeny Prigozhin into exile in Belarus. A part of Wagner's forces is said to be moving to Belarus. Lukashenko has suggested that his military could pick up some of the mercenaries' combat experience obtained in Ukraine and elsewhere. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko received an unusual gift from the country's defense minister before the starting of a routine meeting. A mini replica of a Soviet-era nuclear bomb was gifted to Lukashenko. The dummy bomb is an exact replica of the first ever nuclear bomb produced by the Soviet Union in 1949. Defense minister regarded this as a symbolic gesture towards the country's president. NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg has said that events in Russia show that divisions in the country have grown following the invasion of Ukraine. Stoltenberg made the remarks on Tuesday and said that Ukraine's allies should still not underestimate Moscow. The comments came after a working dinner with the leaders of few NATO member states in The Hague. The NATO chief also said that it's too early to speculate on the effects of the move of Wagner troops to Belarus. He stressed that the alliance is ready to defend itself against any threat. A Russian naval corvette ship has downed an anti-ship cruise missile using air defense weapons during a test sail. 15 naval ships and auxiliary vessels of the Russian Pacific Fleet carried out drills in the Sea of Japan. The area where the tests were performed had been closed to commercial shipping. Lithuania's President Gitanas Nausėda has announced that the country is in the process of purchasing NAMA's air defense systems for Ukraine. The estimated cost for these air defense launchers are over $10 million. According to Lithuania's defense ministry, the new defense systems will be handed over to Ukraine within the next 3 months. Kiev has long been urging the allied countries to help strengthen their air defenses in the face of Russian aggression on military and civilian targets. On the other hand, Norway is also set to supply maintenance equipment for these launchers. Pentagon announced a new military package worth $500 million for Ukraine on Tuesday. The package will include ground vehicles, including broadly fighting vehicles, Striker armored personnel carriers, and munitions for high-mobility artillery rocket systems. Meanwhile, the U.S. also said that it will soon announce actions to hold the Wagner Group accountable. However, it clarified that this will be done over the mercenary group's prior activities in Africa. Swedish Foreign Minister Tobias Billström claimed that Sweden has fulfilled all the requirements set out by Turkey for joining NATO. Billström was speaking at a news conference along with British Foreign Secretary James Cleverly. He referred to the implementation of the new terrorist act, which makes it illegal to participate in a terrorist organization in any way. Meanwhile, Cleverly assured him of UK support and said it would keep on pushing for Stockholm's membership in the 31-member alliance. Clashes broke out between police and the youth in Paris suburb of Nanterre on Tuesday. This came as tensions rose over the recent death of a local teenager who was shot by police during a traffic stop. According to local prosecutor's office, a 17-year-old boy was shot dead by a police officer for not stopping his car. The police officer responsible for the shooting has been charged with homicide. Reacting to this, the French Interior Minister said that they have launched a judicial investigation into this incident. French President Emmanuel Macron called the shooting an inexplicable and unforgivable event. China and New Zealand on Wednesday signed a string of agreements designed to boost trade between the two countries as their leaders met in Beijing for talks. New Zealand Prime Minister Chris Hipkins met Chinese Premier Li Qiang in Beijing. The meeting follows the Prime Minister's meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. China and New Zealand signed a string of agreements designed to boost trade between the two countries. China has lambasted the US and Taiwan's increasing military interaction, saying their move was turning Taiwan into a powder keg. Now, Chinese comments came in light of the recently passed National Defense Authorization Act by the US Senate Committee on Armed Service, which will establish a comprehensive training, advising and institutional capacity building program for the military forces in Taiwan. Former United Nations ambassador and U.S. presidential hopeful Nikki Haley called for drastically limiting ties with China to address the rise in fentanyl deaths in the country. Taking a hawkish stance on Beijing, Haley said that she will push the Congress to revoke permanent normal trade relations until the flow of the opioid stops from China. Fentanyl, whose ingredients are majorly produced by China, is smuggled over the US-Mexico border. It has led to a sharp rise in drug overdose deaths in the United States. The Cambodian police burned 5.2 tons of illegal drugs today, which were seized by the authorities in 2022. The drugs included heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, among other illegal addictive substances. The ceremonial burning of the seized drugs is done to mark International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking, which was celebrated worldwide on Monday. Cambodia has strict laws in place for any kind of drug trafficking. According to the law of the land, any person found smuggling more than 80 grams of illegal drugs can be jailed for life. Reuters reporters claim that thousands of former intelligence operatives are fighting the war in Sudan along with the country's army. It is believed that these operatives used to work under former President Omar al-Bashir and have ties to his Islamist movement. This has further complicated the efforts to end the war, which has been raging for 10 weeks. It is being said that former officials of the country's now disbanded National Intelligence and Security Service have confirmed the report. Sierra Leone's President Julius Maada Bio secured victory in the West African country's presidential election with more than 56% of votes. Maada Bio avoids a runoff against his main rival, Samura Kamara, who received 41% of the votes. The election, which was held on Saturday, has been tense, with violence breaking out before and after the polls. It was speculated that more unrest could follow once the results were announced. Opposition leader Kamara has rejected the poll results, citing irregularities and lack of transparency. International observers and the United States have also voiced concerns about a lack of transparency in the counting process. South Korea has announced sanctions on 2 individuals and 2 entities over their alleged involvement in North Korea's weapons programs. The sanctions also target a South Korean national who acquired Russian citizenship. 2 companies which have been sanctioned are also owned by him. The individual Choi Chong-gong is accused of helping North Korea's illegal financial activities in violation of United Nations Security Council sanctions. South Koreans will now become younger by a year as the country dropped the traditional method of calculating age. Seoul was the only East Asian country to use a method of calculating age, which starts counting age of babies from the time they are in the womb. But now it will use the international system that calculates age according to a person's actual date of birth. The Philippine authorities have detained more than 2,700 human traffickers during a raid in Manila. The alleged trafficking victims were paid to recruit players for online games. Many of them were forced to work 12-hour shifts every day and were paid as little as $400 a month. The victims were prevented from leaving the compound. Authorities called it the biggest ever anti-trafficking raid in the Philippines. Let's talk business on Speed News. The European Union considers launching a digital version of the euro currency. This would be used alongside cash. Unlike cryptocurrency, a digital euro will be guaranteed by the European Central Bank. It could also cut out current cashless payment service providers such as Visa, MasterCard and Apple Pay. A parliamentary committee in Australia has recommended a phased ban on all advertising for online gambling within the next 3 years. The move comes after rising concerns about the destructive impact of online gambling on communities and the culture of sport. Australians currently outspend citizens of every other country in online gambling, prompting the urgent need for action. The proposed ban aims to eliminate gambling advertisements across all media platforms, leaving no room for circumvention. This recommendation, if implemented, would have significant implications for major online gaming companies. The Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, has pledged to consider the committee's recommendations and address the broader issues of online and social media concerns. Let's switch to climate now. Residents in northeastern India were surrounded by flood water as a monsoon swept over most of the country. Muslims hoping to celebrate Eid-ul-Adha will have difficulties commemorating the day due to the devastating floods. India's monsoon season rains were set to cover the whole country by the weekend, according to the Indian Meteorological Department. Orange alerts were issued and heavy rainfall was expected to lash the region through Sunday. Smoke from the Canadian wildfires have crossed the North Atlantic Ocean and has reached Europe. The wildfire smoke shrouded the skies of Portugal and Spain earlier this week and is expected to arrive in Western Europe and the British Isles late this week. This year's wildfire season is the worst on record in Canada, with some 76,000 square kilometers being charred completely. Scientists remain concerned about the carbon emissions from the wildfire. The carbon released is roughly equivalent to Indonesia's annual carbon dioxide emissions from the burning of fossil fuels. In Saudi Arabia, huge crowds of robed Muslims gathered for the stoning of the devil ritual on Wednesday, which is seen as the biggest Hajj pilgrimage since pandemic. The ritual marks the start of the 3-day holiday Eid al-Adha, celebrated by Muslims to commemorate Abraham's willingness to sacrifice his son. The Hajj is a major source of revenue and prestige for Saudi Arabia, which is trying to free its oil-dependent economy in new directions, including tourism. Scientists can now study our earliest days with the help of embryo models and reveal the mysteries of early human development, the medical problems that happens before birth, and why many pregnancies fail. These models are made from stem cells, not egg and sperm, and they cannot grow into babies. According to Zerinka Goetz, a developmental biologist, human embryo models could even be used to generate tissues used in new medical treatments. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.